Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. God has given us unlimited treasures in His Word. Every time we open it, we can discover a new treasure or admire an old one. What will we find today? Here's Carla Early with Treasure Hunt in the Word.
In the book of 2 Kings, God did 28 miracles through the prophet Elisha. The one I wanted to highlight today isn't one of the most amazing or memorable. It's actually rather commonplace and only really mattered to one person. But to that one person, I'm sure it was something he repeated often and even told his children and grandchildren what God had done for him. Elisha had a group of men he was training called the Sons of the Prophets. He kind of started what we'd think of today as a seminary. And the students were running out of room, so they suggested to Elisha that they should build a dormitory where they could live and he could teach them. Elisha consented, so they started building. At one point it says, "But as one was cutting down a tree, the iron axe head fell into the water, and he cried out, saying, 'Alas, master, for it was borrowed.' So Elisha said, 'Where did it fall?' And he showed him the place. So he cut off a stick and threw it in there, and he made the iron float." We may read that and think, "Oh, how nice," and go on. But for that one man, this was a huge deal. Back in the day, iron was expensive and relatively rare. Being a student, that man couldn't afford an axe, which is why he borrowed one. If he broke it or lost it, he couldn't afford to replace it. So finding it again must have been a huge relief. And what a great miracle story he had to tell. It reminded me of one of the great God stories that happened to me once. Maybe I've told this on here before, but God stories, as my family calls them, are made to be told over and over, if for nothing else but to glorify God. When my children were about 3 and 5, we lived in a neighborhood that had walking trails with blackberry and raspberry bushes. As we picked berries, sometimes we shared the bushes with hungry deer. We always enjoyed our walks in the forest, but we especially enjoyed picking berries. One day we arrived home with our full buckets, only to find the garage door opener that I had slipped into my pocket was missing. I'd used that instead of the front door key, thinking it would be harder to lose since it had a clip that should have secured it to the side of my pocket. Harder perhaps, but not impossible. That was before I had a cell phone, and we still had 6 hours before my husband was supposed to come home. 6 hours in which we were supposed to have lunch, nap time, and school. So what else could we do besides go back and search for the garage door opener in the mile or so of tall grass that we had just walked through? But before I could turn around to trudge back to retrace our steps, my daughter caught my attention. "Doesn't God know where it is?" she asked. Good point. So we knelt and prayed right there on the sidewalk that the Lord would help us find the garage door opener. Silently, I added a personal request that my daughter would find it, since she had the faith. I personally felt like it would be like finding a needle in a haystack, but she had faith, so I had hope. Do you know, she was the first one to spot it, deep in some weeds where I'd leaned over another bush to pick some in the back. We returned home rejoicing in what God had done specifically for us. So I know what that guy with the lost axe head in 2 Kings 6 felt like. God did this for me. It wasn't some big life-changing miracle or national victory in battle, though God does those too. It was personal, for me, a way for God to show me His love and care for His daughter, and for my children too, even if they don't remember that day. What has God done for you personally? I'd love to hear your God stories, and He loves for you to tell them, to brag on Him and say, "Look what my God did for me."
You can contact us at treasurehuntintheword@gmail.com. We'd love to hear the treasures God has given you through His Word. You can listen to other episodes on our website, which you can find in the description below. Thank you for listening, and remember, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.